Imagine standing inside a civilization that believes it has solved history. It's Rome, near the height of its dominance. Massive stone structures surround you, engineered to last centuries. Fresh water flows effortlessly across the land. Trade routes pulse with wealth. Soldiers stand ready, disciplined, unquestioned. In the distance, the Colosseum looms as proof that order, power, and control are permanent. Rome stretches across continents. Its enemies are distant. Its institutions feel untouchable. To those living here, Rome is not fragile. It's inevitable. A system so vast, so refined, it feels beyond failure. If someone warned them this empire would soon fracture, that confidence would dissolve into decay, they wouldn't panic. They wouldn't listen. They would say systems like this don't collapse, not slowly. Not quietly, not at all. Every empire reaches a phase where doubt feels unnecessary. That phase is always the most dangerous, because that's when the countdown starts. Would you have seen it coming? There's a dangerous feeling that settles in when power lasts too long. It's not arrogance in the loud sense. It's comfort. It's the quiet belief that the rules no longer apply to you. When an empire survives every challenge, defeats every enemy, and grows beyond imagination, failure stops feeling like a possibility. It feels like something that happens to other people, in other places, in other times. This is the psychological trap of dominance. History shows us something unsettling. Empires don't collapse when they are weak, desperate, or starving. They collapse when they feel secure, when prosperity masks fragility. When success convinces leaders and citizens alike that tomorrow will look exactly like today. At the height of power, warnings sound like paranoia. Skeptics are dismissed. Doubt is seen as disloyalty. The system becomes sacred, untouchable, permanent. But permanence is an illusion, because the strongest moment in an empire's life is often the moment it stops paying attention. And when vigilance fades, decay doesn't announce itself. It slips in quietly. The strongest moment is often the most dangerous one. Now, fast forward. Leave the marble behind. Leave the aqueducts, legions, Colosseum. Step out of ancient Rome and into modern America. You stand in New York City. Steel and glass replace stone. Digital screens replace statues. Stock tickers flash green as money moves instantly. Streets pulse with ambition. Confidence fills the air. This is not just a city. It is the financial center. The world trades its currency. Power spans oceans. Culture dominates screens and thought. It looks unstoppable. If warned the foundation was cracking, you'd react like Rome. Too big to fail. Too advanced to fall. Does this feel familiar? History is often treated as random events. Wars here, collapses there. Victories and defeats strung together like accidents. But civilizations don't move that way. History is patterned. Human nature doesn't upgrade with technology. Tools change, buildings rise, weapons accelerate, but instincts driving power, greed, fear, and comfort remain. When the same pressures meet the same behavior, outcomes repeat. Empires rise believing they are different, smarter, more advanced. They blame past failures on lesser people. History ignores confidence. It repeats because humans repeat. Names change, symbols change, technology changes, incentives do not. Studying the past isn't nostalgia, it's reconnaissance. Because chaos today follows patterns. Rome did not fall in a single dramatic moment. There was no final speech where leaders admitted failure, no instant where the sky went dark and the empire collapsed overnight. That version of history is comforting because it feels distant and obvious. The real collapse was far more unsettling. It happened slowly. While citizens were distracted by abundance, games, and spectacle, the foundations were quietly weakening. Life still looked normal on the surface. Markets were open. Festivals continued. The empire still expanded maps and celebrated victories, but underneath, something vital was being drained. The danger wasn't at the borders. It wasn't the barbarians waiting beyond the walls. It was internal decay, a rot that grew during times of peace and prosperity, not chaos. The kind of decay that spreads precisely because no one feels an urgent reason to stop it. By the time Rome looked vulnerable from the outside, it had already been fragile for generations on the inside. Collapse doesn't announce itself when it begins. It reveals itself only when it's nearly finished. The real collapse started long before the walls fell. In its earliest days, Rome was built on discipline. Not just military discipline, but economic discipline. Duty mattered, responsibility mattered, and above all, value mattered. The people who farmed the land were the same people who defended it. Production came before consumption. Sacrifice came before comfort. This mindset was reflected in Rome's money. For centuries, the Roman currency was made of real silver. Not promises, not trust in authority, actual weight, actual scarcity. If you held a coin in your hand, you didn't need faith in the state. You needed only the metal itself. Value was tangible, honest, difficult to fake. This kind of money shaped behavior. It encouraged saving instead of reckless spending. It rewarded long-term thinking over short-term pleasure. It made cheating the system costly instead of convenient. Because when money is real, the economy becomes real. Roads were built, aqueducts were maintained, armies were paid with something that held meaning beyond a government decree. Trust between citizen and state was strong because the medium connecting them was solid. But that stability came with a condition. It only works as long as money stays honest. And once money stops being real, everything built on top of it begins to shift. What happens when money stops being real? Success changed Rome in ways no enemy ever could. As the empire expanded, discipline gave way to comfort. Conquest flooded the capital with wealth faster than Rome could absorb. A society built by farmers and soldiers began to soften. The warrior faded. Administrators and aristocrats rose. Production lost status. Consumption took its place. Wealth flowed from power, not labor. Abundance bred entitlement. Sacrifice turned into expectation. The focus shifted from building tomorrow to enjoying today. Rome barely noticed. Life felt good, even better than before. Beneath the surface, appetite outpaced restraint. Success hides weakness. Failure alarms. Success sedates. Success rots faster. Inside, an empire that stretches across the known world comes with a price. Rome had legions stationed thousands of miles from the capital. Roads, ports, and cities had to be built and repaired across continents. Borders had to be defended. And inside Rome itself, a massive population had to be kept calm, fed, and entertained. None of this was cheap. The empire's expenses kept growing, but its easy sources of income didn't last forever. Conquered territories stopped yielding endless treasure. New wars cost more than they returned. Slowly, quietly, Rome reached a point every empire eventually reaches. The bills became larger than the income. This wasn't a moral crisis. It was a mathematical one. And math doesn't care how powerful you think you are. The problem was simple. How do you maintain an enormous global system when the numbers no longer work? There were only bad options. Cut spending and risk unrest, raise taxes and anger the elite, admit limits and lose political power. Every path carried consequences no ruler wanted to face. So the problem wasn't that Rome ran out of money. The problem was that Rome ran out of honest choices. And when the bill finally comes due, there's always one question that decides the fate of an empire. When the bill comes due, who pays it? Rome's leaders reached a crossroads, and every option in front of them was painful. They could cut spending. That meant fewer games, fewer benefits, fewer comforts for a population that had grown used to being entertained and fed by the state. That path led to anger, unrest, and rebellion. They could raise taxes. But higher taxes meant pushing back against the wealthy and powerful elites who kept emperors in power. That path led to betrayal, coups, and political suicide. Or they could choose the third option, the option that looks painless at first. They could change the money. No public announcement, no emergency decree, no visible confession of weakness, just a quiet adjustment behind closed doors. A small reduction in silver here, a little more base metal mixed in there. On the surface, the coins looked the same. The face of the emperor was still stamped on them. The laws still declared them equal in value. And that was the illusion. Because once leaders realize they can fund power by manipulating currency instead of confronting reality, the temptation becomes irresistible. Each crisis justifies another temporary adjustment. Each adjustment feels harmless compared to the alternative. This was the moment Rome crossed a line it could never uncross. The decision that solved the problem for the rulers and doomed the system for everyone else. This decision changes everything. At first, almost no one noticed. The coins still looked familiar. They still carried the emperor's face. They were still accepted by law, still exchanged in markets, still used to pay soldiers and merchants. On the surface, nothing appeared broken. But something fundamental had changed. The silver content of the coins was quietly reduced. A little copper here, a little cheaper metal there. The state could now mint more coins from the same amount of silver. More money entered circulation, even though no new wealth had been created. It felt like a solution. The empire could pay its debts, the armies stayed loyal, the games continued, life went on. For a while, the system appeared to be working, and that's what made it so dangerous. Because debasement doesn't explode, it leaks. Value drains slowly, almost invisibly, like blood leaving the body drop by drop. The laws remain the same, the institutions remain in place, the promises remain intact. Only the substance behind them disappears. And once that door is opened, it never closes. Every future ruler faced pressure. Every pressure led to the same shortcut. A little more dilution, a little more manipulation, a little less honesty. The theft was legal, and most people never saw it happening. The theft was legal and invisible. Eventually, reality catches up. As more diluted coins flooded the economy, merchants began to notice something was wrong. The money they were receiving didn't buy what it used to. A sack of wheat required more coins than before. Oil, cloth, tools, everything cost more. Not because goods were scarce, but because the money was weaker. This is how inflation really begins. It's not an abstract number on a scroll or a proclamation from the state. It's felt at the market. It's felt when savings lose power. It's felt when honest work buys less life than it did yesterday. People who had done everything right were punished. Years of saved silver were wiped out by debased metal. The middle class, the backbone of the empire, began to disappear. Not through violence, but through erosion. Trust collapsed next. Merchants stopped believing the state's value claims. Soldiers realized they were being paid in metal that meant less with every passing year. Once trust in money dies, trust in institutions follows. Rome tried to respond with force, price controls, threats, punishments, but you cannot command reality to obey a lie. When money lies, society turns inward. People hoard, trade slows, black markets form, cooperation collapses. And once that spiral begins, it feeds on itself. What happens when money lies? When the lie became impossible to ignore, loyalty began to fracture. Soldiers realized they risked their lives for pay without meaning. Merchants watched livelihoods crushed by rules that punished survival. Workers learned effort would always give less back. The social contract was breaking. A society survives only while people believe the rules are fair, or at least stable. When that belief fades, obedience becomes calculation. Why defend a system paying broken promises? Why protect a structure quietly stealing from you? Rome didn't fall because enemies grew stronger. It fell because citizens detached. The gates opened after the empire was already hollow inside itself. In the beginning, America followed the path Rome once did. This nation was built on production, not permission, on work, not leverage. Farmers, builders, inventors, manufacturers formed the backbone. Value came from effort. Growth came from discipline. Trust came from limits. Money reflected this mindset. For much of its early history, the dollar was tied to something real. Not promises, tangible value. Scarcity mattered. Restraint mattered. Government couldn't create wealth by decree. It had to earn, tax, or borrow honestly. This discipline shaped behavior. It rewarded saving, long planning, punished recklessness. America grew powerful by respecting reality. We once understood this lesson very clearly then. The moment everything changed did not feel dramatic. No riots, no empty shelves, no sense history had turned. Most people never noticed. In 1971, facing debt and obligations, America made a quiet choice. The dollar was untied from gold. The last restraint vanished. Money no longer had to be scarce. It only had to be declared valid. The problem seemed solved. Spending expanded. Wars continued. Choices were delayed. Pressure eased without confrontation. But something essential was lost. Money stopped reflecting reality and became trust. And stretched trust always breaks. From then on, every crisis ended the same way. Print more, borrow more, expand more. History repeated. What makes this moment different is speed. Rome had limits. Coins were gathered. Metal was melted. Currency reminted by hand. Debasement took decades to show damage. The collapse moved slowly. Modern systems have no friction. Money appears instantly. Trillions emerge with keystrokes. No physical limits, no delays, no breaks. Centuries compress into decades. This changes everything. Mistakes compound faster. Debt explodes. Consequences hit sooner. Systems can't adapt. Imbalance accelerates. Because it feels abstract and digital, danger goes unseen. Rome walked into collapse. We are sprinting toward it. What took centuries now takes decades. What if this time it's faster still? There's a pattern that keeps appearing once you zoom out far enough. Across thousands of years, different cultures, languages, and technologies, the same arc keeps repeating. Empires rise from hardship. They expand through discipline. They grow wealthy through trade. They peak in comfort. And then, slowly, they decline under the weight of their own success. This isn't theory. It's observation. Most dominant civilizations last around the same length of time, not because of fate or superstition, but because human behavior follows predictable incentives. Power concentrates, debt grows, values erode. Reality gets postponed, and eventually, the math stops cooperating. There is an age of pioneers, where survival matters, an age of conquest, where strength is rewarded, an age of commerce, where efficiency builds wealth, an age of affluence, where comfort replaces urgency. Then comes the age of decadence, where spending replaces saving and entitlement replaces responsibility. Every empire believes it will escape this cycle. None ever have. The question is never whether the pattern exists. It's whether you're willing to look at where you are inside it. Do the math. When the dates line up, coincidence disappears. America declared independence in 1776. Add the average lifespan of past empires, and you arrive at a year uncomfortably close. A year marked by extreme debt, deep division, and a currency under silent strain. This is why 2026 matters. Not because magic happens on calendars, but because systems reach limits pressure can no longer absorb. Interest begins competing with essentials. Borrowing stops solving problems and only delays them. The margin for error shrinks. The symptoms align. Debt explodes. Currency weakens. Division deepens. These are end cycle markers. The year is not random anymore at all. Collapse rarely looks the way people imagine it. It isn't a sudden apocalypse. It isn't chaos in the streets overnight. It's quieter than that, slower, and far more disorienting. Systems don't disappear all at once. They degrade. Services become unreliable. Costs rise faster than incomes. The rules start changing more often. Trust erodes in small, almost ignorable ways. Life still goes on, but it feels heavier, less stable, more uncertain. What people lose first isn't survival, it's confidence. The sense that tomorrow will be predictable, the belief that effort will be rewarded fairly, the assumption that institutions are competent and honest. Rome didn't vanish when it fell. Italy remained. People adapted. But the structure that provided safety, order, and global dominance faded into something unrecognizable. Comfort disappeared long before civilization did. Collapse is not an event. It's a transition. And by the time most people realize what's happening, they're already living inside it. The lights don't go out at once. History shows collapse doesn't affect everyone the same way. When systems fail, those most dependent suffer first. People relying on stable institutions, predictable money, and endless promises are exposed when guarantees break. But others survive. Not because they are luckier, but because they see patterns early. In Rome's decline, survivors weren't clinging to imperial currency or favor. They held land, skills, trade, and assets that lived beyond politics. They understood a simple truth. When money fails, value doesn't vanish. It transforms. Land feeds, skills produce, assets endure, awareness becomes leverage. Empires fall, life continues. The line is drawn before collapse. The question is which side? Cycles like this can't be voted away. They can't be negotiated out of existence. They don't care who holds power or how confident the promises sound. Empires rise and fall under pressures larger than any leader or generation. That is the uncomfortable truth. Rome couldn't stop its cycle. Britain couldn't stop its cycle. Believing we are the exception is the final illusion every empire clings to before reality intervenes. But inevitability does not mean helplessness. Those who suffer most are those who refuse to see it coming, those who trust the system blindly, those who believe tomorrow must look like yesterday. Awareness is not fear, it is leverage. History isn't whispering anymore, it's warning. The clock is moving toward 2026.